Hey, welcome back to Cream City Dreams. I'm your host, Megan Schultz, and this is the podcast where I introduce you to incredible Milwaukee women week after week. And I am wrapping up today our season of joy. Since the beginning of June in this season of joy, I have been talking to all sorts of women who are bringing the joy in so many different ways. If you have been following along, you know that I have talked with chefs and dancers and musicians and executives and entrepreneurs and business owners, cafe owners, illustrators, singers, event planners, and that's just one of the titles that each of these women hold. They are so much more, and I hope you have enjoyed my conversations with each of them. And on today's episode, I wanted to take just a little snippet from each of the conversations I've had with these women about their thoughts on joy. I've been talking about joy. I've been writing about joy in my newsletters. If you're on my mailing list, you know this. I have been thinking about joy and what brings me joy and how to put out more joy into the world, because that is what we need right now. And I asked each guest at the end of each conversation their best advice for people looking for more joy. And so today what I want to do is share their answers in one fell swoop. So you don't have to go back and listen to each episode individually, although I hope you do, or I hope you already have. But today you can sit back and enjoy just this little piece of advice that may send you into your day with some inspiration and some hope and some practical things that you can do if you're looking for more joy in your life. So, without further ado, the incredible women of Season 8 on joy. So I have to say, I was giddy with joy when Chef Dana Spandit agreed to be on the podcast, and we opened the season with her and her story of how she came to found Flower Girl and Flame Pizza, the award-winning, ubiquitous, I think is the best word for her and her team. Over the summer, you see their mobile pizza trucks popping up all over, as well as her shop down in West Allis when the summer ends and she returns to the storefront. And she did not disappoint. Her story was so interesting and so thoughtful, and I just love the joy that she brings with her wherever she goes, and to her team, and to creating inclusive communities in and around our city. So here's what she had to say about joy. And this is a question I'm asking everybody on this season. What is your advice for people who are looking to find more joy in their life?
You know, when I first got sober, it was like we took everything away and I was left with myself. And I had to do a lot of work to be comfortable with just being left with myself. And I remember the first concert that I went to in sobriety was Florence and the Machine at Summerfest. And I loved Florence and the Machine. And I hated that show. I didn't know what to do with myself. I wasn't happy. I wasn't, and I was like, God, am I just destined for a life of sobriety that's miserable? And that's when, my wife and I took a gardening class. And I don't know if she loved it, but I loved it. And we actually just found our little plot map from 10 years ago or whatever. And I loved it. And it brought me joy. And then we added in a beehive, and that brought me joy. And then, we added in a chicken coop. And I don't mean go crazy and start adding all this stuff, but find the joy. I think we have to take just a little bit to find it, either in ourselves or out there. And it takes a little bit. I've tried a lot of stuff. I'm like, oh, that was not joyful. But I keep trying, and I think I'm there.
After Dana, I was so excited to talk with Carlise Kelly, who is the founder of Panadanza Dance Company, because I was introduced to her this spring on her Magical Monday nights, where she teaches Afro, Latin, all sorts of dance from around the world at the Delaware House in Bayview. And you don't have to know how to dance. You don't have to have experience. You just have to bring your body and your heartbeat, and she will show you the rhythm. And this is so true. If you have a chance to dance with her, I highly, highly suggest it. And this is what she said about joy, because this is a season about joy. And I think we need more joy in our life right now. What is your advice for people who are looking to get more joy, or to find more joy?
Like you said, get up, put a song on, and start your day with a dance, because the body is the truth and the body remembers. The body remembers. Put that song on that you really enjoyed at 18 years old, and you'll see how you feel at 46.
Yes.
You know, it brings you, it's like smell. It brings you to a place that you can really, it's so palpable.
Yeah.
And finding joy, like you don't have to go to a certain space to feel that. You can create that in the little ways in your house, and going for a walk. I used to do this dance walk thing where I actually might start that again this summer. I was thinking about it. Really, we just pick a neighborhood and we dance walk. And when we get to a red light, there's a prompt. You know, maybe you do the limbo and you cross when it goes to green. So I'm thinking about starting that back up again. So just finding the little joys in life, really.
After Carlise, the next two women I interviewed had either joy in their name or joy in their business name. So I had to, of course, have them on the podcast. The first one was Mary Joy Hickey, and she is the executive director of Girls Rock, MKE, as well as Ladies Rock. And I have had Mary Joy on the list for, over a year now, because I'm so intrigued by this organization that brings young girls together for a week in the summer, throws them into a band, gives them a musical instrument that they may or may not have had experience with, and by the Sunday, they're ready to perform on stage. And my daughter, who was on the podcast earlier as well, as you'll recall, she is 7, and she and I went to see these girls perform on stage, and it was incredible. The excitement in the room was palpable. The vibe was electric. It was just super cool. So I was so happy that Mary Joy agreed to be on the podcast, and this is what she had to say about joy. Just wondering if you have any advice for listeners around joy, how to find it, why it's important, how to live into it, just any parting thoughts on joy as in terms of what you do and what you bring.
I love this question. So I think joy is an individual experience, knowing what makes you specifically joyful, what brings you joy that might be different from another person. And it's collective in that it's a way that we can come together and be in communal joy. So my advice to listeners would be, what brings you joy? How do you get to know yourself so that you know what your joy is? Dig into that. Might I recommend some form of creation, some form of art that can help draw out what's on the inside that might not always be translatable, might not have words for it, but maybe when you create a painting or journal or draw, or in our case, use music, strum a guitar, put some words to some structure to a song, hit some drums, and see what do you learn about yourself and what comes up for you when you're engaging in that process. I think what we have seen and observed in our programs is the act of expressing that inner world and bringing it into the outer world for people to see and celebrate. And it's transformative. It helps other people unlock. It gives back to the world. And your voice, your creative voice, your joy is such an important thread in our collective joy. And we need that out there. People need that so that can help them unlock their joy if they're struggling with that.
After Mary Joy came the inimitable Steph Salvia of Joy Engine. Of course, if joy is in the name of your organization, you've got to be on this podcast for the season. And I had heard about the art installations that Joy Engine brings in and around Milwaukee. In fact, you probably have too if you saw the giant octopods on the beaches last summer, or the gigantic full moon that hung in the Third Ward a few years back, or the giant life-size birds out at Lakeshore State Park that were an installation that kids could run and jump and climb on and have fun with. That is all Joy Engine, and that is all Steph Salvia. She does so much more than just these summer art blazes, but this is what we talked about because this is what's coming this summer. Again, back to the beaches. And this is what Steph had to say about joy. What advice do you have for people looking to find more joy?
So actually, we've been talking. I've been talking about this a lot with family and friends, and what's been keeping us joyful in between all the weird and chaotic things that are happening is spending that time with like-minded humans. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like just surround yourself with people you love and just stay away from the haters. Like anybody who's going to bring you down, I mean, kind of anytime, don't ever hang around with the haters or the naysayers. But like, I just think it's so much more important now more than ever. And that may be a very small group of people, like that you know for certain have your back and are there to give you a hug or a high five or whatever,
Yes.
100,000,000%, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's
So
kind of
true.
what we've been doing at my house.
Finding
Yep.
your people. Absolutely.
Yeah.
After Steph came a woman that I had known about because, and listeners, if you didn't listen to the episode, this might not make any sense, but this next guest drew a picture of my butt and my daughter's butt. We were standing together and she drew us both, and it's very cute. And if you were on my newsletter, you got to see it. But for the rest of you, if this isn't making any sense, you must go back and listen to the episode because I had Rachel Dugan, who is an illustrator and author and so much more here in Milwaukee. And we had a really fun conversation about finding joy when things maybe aren't so joyful around you in life. And this is what Rachel had to say about joy. If there are listeners who are just not feeling the joy and just looking for advice on how to live more joyfully or what they can do or ways to find more joy in their life right now, what do you suggest?
I would suggest going for a walk. I prioritize walking every single day. And I have found that has probably been one of the biggest things that have helped my mental health. And also just like stopping thinking patterns, because you kind of have to be in the moment to some degree, or you try to be. And when I go for walks, especially now in spring, I'm a lady of a certain age, so I've started birding. I feel like, I'm not going to act like that's special because everybody loves birds, but there's something really magical about being in nature and just like slowing down and observing and being in the moment. Like, how often are we actually in the moment? Like, very rarely. We're constantly like overwhelmed by stimulation everywhere we look and to-do lists and work, family, whatever. So going out and like the park and walking around and hearing sounds and observing birds and maybe saying hi to someone who walks by or asking, what are you taking a picture? It's like, it just kind of changes your whole day. And now it used to be really hard for me to even just like get on shoes to like go do the walk, because I'd be like, oh, do I really want to do this? Now it's like what I look forward to the most every single day. It's like the best part of my day every single day is like me time. And alone time and also like nature time. And that helps me just like center myself and find like joy in small things. Like sometimes when like big things are bad, like maybe just like take it down to like a micro level of like teeny tiny bits of
Yes.
joy. And then maybe, you'll build upon that and start seeing things differently or feeling things a bit more. But you never know what you can see on a walk. Man, you can just like see something weird happen. You could be like, oh, I've never noticed that house. It's painted so cool. Or I saw a raccoon baby. I don't know. Like there's all sorts of like cool things around the corner. You just have to start watching for it and it's free.
Yes,
Sorry.
absolutely. Absolutely. And after Rachel came another artist, poet, entrepreneur, business owner, cafe owner, delightful woman who was recommended by Dasha Kelly, who said, if I am having a season on joy, I must get this woman on the podcast. And so, of course, I had to ask Tiffany Miller of Fruition MKE and so much more. And this is what she had to say about joy. What advice would you give to someone who wants to grow more joy in their life, who maybe isn't feeling like life is particularly joyful in their life or their work or whatever?
You have to give to yourself before you give to the world.
Mm.
It can be a small meditation. It could be reading a page in a book. Have those things by your nightstand. It could be going for a short walk or a long walk or working out or taking a longer shower with your favorite soap. Like you need to give to yourself before you pour out to others every day. So, and even at night, taking a moment to do the same thing, do a short meditation, jot down something, that happened that you loved, in the day. There's always joy. So if you are able to stand outside and just stand in that one spot of sun or notice a heart-shaped like spot on the concrete or like
Yes.
the lilies I planted in memory of my mother are starting to pop up. There might be like a daffodil, or you might see a little bumblebee on the dandelion that is popping up in your yard. So like, don't be irritated by the weed. Find the bumblebee. Because there's a lot of things happening, and it takes just a little moment to notice. And then once you notice, like you'll start noticing more, and you can appreciate and find the joy, the glimmers.
I love that.
A lot of us look for this like big, extravagant like moment to happen, and it's a bunch of little moments that lead up to the big. So
yes. Oh, thank you for that. A couple years ago, when I was on a writing retreat in Taos, New Mexico, I saw a sign on a bulletin board in this store for a threshold choir. And it described the threshold choir as people who sing to those who are on the threshold of death. And it was volunteer-based, and you had to be comfortable in that setting and be able to carry a tune. And I was so intrigued by this idea. So imagine my delight when I was introduced to Marjorie Moon by a friend and learned that Marjorie had started the chapter of Milwaukee's Threshold Choir with Rita Bertrand, and that this very thing existed in our own city. So I talked to these two women about what they do with their choir and asked them about joy at the end of our conversation. And this is what they said. How would you advise somebody who's looking to bring more joy into their life? What would you recommend?
Finding something that they're passionate about. I think that is one of the key ways to doing that. Finding something they're passionate about that brings joy to others as well as joy to themselves, because that will be more sustainable. You have to, in my opinion, enjoy what you're doing in order to be able to bring joy to others.
This is Marjorie. I think that it's really critical, and this links into your sort of interim programming having to do with social media and everything. I think it's really critical to step away from the daily and what consumes us all so much in our daily lives, be it the phone, be it the chores, be it the kids, whatever. But if you can step away from that into a quiet place and try to get in touch with what brings you joy inside yourself, it's there. It's definitely there. You just have to you be able to hear it. And with the cacophony of the world, you sometimes can't hear it.
Yes, this is so true. Oh my goodness, yes. And I love what you said too about stepping back, because and it feels like what we've been talking about in this podcast is just that stepping back and realizing what's important in the end, you know? Like, let's just take that breath and realize that maybe all these things that were on our to-do list and, you know, at the very end, is that going to be what we are so concerned about? Or do we want to just take a step back and really, I don't know, appreciate the love and the family and the song and the beauty of just life?
Yeah.
Well, I had a very wise person once say, you will never find a U-Haul behind a hearse.
Yes. Yes. That is so. I think my dad has a song that we always joke about it. Similar concept. You never see a hearse with a luggage rack, right?
Same kind of thing.
Yes.
And nobody gets out of the world alive.
Yes. Right. So what's really important, people? Something that you enjoy, something you're passionate about, and then do it. Love that. How lucky are we in Milwaukee to have so many cool spaces for gathering, for meeting spots, for working, for co-working, for meeting up with friends. And I feel lucky that I got 2 of them squeezed into this season of joy, both with Tiffany Miller of Fruition MKE and Roche Brister with the new Style Pop Cafe, which is down in Walker's Point. And this was my first interview in person. I took my microphones down to the cafe and we sat in a little closed off room that she has specifically for people who need a little bit of privacy while they're doing their work or some quiet space. And it was so much fun. And this is what Roche had to say about joy. One of the things I am asking all the guests on this season is advice that our guests have for listeners who just might need a little more joy in their life. You know, how do you find the joy?
I would say take time out for yourself. Reconnect with yourself and reconnect with everything that is around you, because this is going to be here regardless. You know, whatever effort you put into it, it will sustain. So just make sure you also put that same type of effort back into yourself. So.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like that's been a common thread in all of these, is like, what brings you joy and do more of that. Look for that. Yeah. So this is a podcast about Milwaukee. So what better woman to have on the season of joy than the woman who helps us explore behind the scenes in our city, the woman responsible for Doors Open Milwaukee once a year in September, and for all sorts of cool tours that we can take of our hometown. And I am talking about Grace Fuhr, and she works at Historic Milwaukee as the events director. And this is what Grace had to say about joy in Milwaukee. One of the things I'm asking all the guests this season is advice on, you know, if you're looking for more joy in Milwaukee, what would you tell people?
I like that question. I kind of feel like I'm going to repeat myself a little bit and say beach and biking, getting outside.
Yes, yeah.
We all know Milwaukee is one of the best places to be in summer, and I know it's been a little bit warm this summer too, but just getting out and exploring nature and going to our parks and our beaches is a great way to reset and experience joy for me.
If you have been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you have probably heard me talk about creative mornings, at least since 2024, when our chapter in Milwaukee was reignited by Annie Werner and Kelly Winarski. And this is a monthly event series that brings together creatives around the city, which is to say all of us, because we are all creative, and invites them into a conversation, a dialogue, a listening session, because they have speakers and pitches and music or artists. They have free coffee and donuts. It's a once a month gathering on the third Friday of every month, and it is really an invitation to be in community with fellow Milwaukeeans. And this was such a joyful conversation. I so enjoyed talking with Annie and Kelly and hearing the story behind what it takes to get something off the ground like this. And this is what they said about joy in a sort of roundabout way.
So if you just get even the tiniest bit curious about a person, again, a portal. It's like an unbelievable amount of beauty and things you can learn.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where the joy lives, is like in the details.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that was going to be my question, is where do you find joy? Do you have advice for people who are looking for more joy, since this is a season about joy? But I think you guys are exemplifying writing your story, telling stories, and owning that story, and coming to the story with a curiosity. I think you guys nailed it. You know, I think, or I hope at least, that it's obvious to listeners why I asked the two of you specifically to be on this season of Joy. And I am so grateful to both of you for all you're doing to bring the creative community in Milwaukee together, which is to say all of us in Milwaukee together. And for creating just such a warm and welcoming space, you know. And you joked this morning, Kelly, about perhaps the overused phrase of now more than ever, but I really do think it does feel like now more than ever we need these in-person, communal, collaborative events that are so much more than just networking, you know, or go so much deeper than that. So thank you for getting us out of our silos and connecting us, and just gratitude.
Thank you so much. And thank you for doing that same work in your own way. I love listening to your podcast, and it really brings so much joy and gives me so much peace knowing these are people who live in our neighborhood, you know. So thank you for sharing that back to us. Yeah, I echo that. It's really important work you're doing, Megan, and you're helping everyone feel more connected and seen. So we share this work with you. We are lucky to be in partnership with you in that work. So.
And listeners, talk about the guest this season who has every right to be angry and so far from joy, so removed from the season of joy that she wouldn't have any advice for us on how to find our joy. But in fact, I think Reese Schneider gave us some of the best advice. Again, in a roundabout way, in a way that I put it together after she had said what she had said about gratitude and joy, and finding gratitude in hard times as well. Reese is the mom of Stella and the woman behind what will be Stella's playground next summer. Stella is recovering from a cancerous brain tumor, and Reese should be an inspiration to us all. So if you have not listened to this episode, please go back and listen. But here is a snippet of what Reese had to say about joy, and here she is talking about a quote that she heard from Stephen Colbert a few years ago.
If you go through life, there are good, there's good and there's bad, and you can't have one without the other, right? So how do you embrace all of life? Right. And so I think that's what he was trying to say there. And that's something that I think about every day, of being grateful for the thing you most wish hadn't happened. And again, part of this is being grateful for the community that we've seen come through, for the love that we never would have experienced and truly felt had Stella not gone through this. And don't get me wrong, this is not a I'm grateful that Stella got cancer. No, this is a gratefulness for life and all that life has to offer. And then also, what do we do with that gratefulness? You know, and what do we do for our community, and what do we do for the people that we love? And that may include building a playground.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I don't know where to go from there. Oh my gosh. Well, it's funny that my last question, which is something I'm asking all the guests this season, is what advice do you have for listeners about how to find joy? But I think you just nailed it right there. I think looking for that gratefulness for that which you wish hadn't happened.
Yep. And it's a struggle. It's not, and it's not the toxic positivity, right? Of the like, oh, just be happy, happy she's alive. Like, no, that's not what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because of course I'm happy she's alive, right? But it's a little bit deeper than that.
And last but not least, listeners, you know this voice. Tekla Brumder-Ross has been with me since May on the podcast, talking about attention and how to get it back, how to hang on to it, how not to let it go to things like screens and technology and all of the digital devices that distract us on the daily. How's that for alliteration? Here is Tekla on what she has been doing and what she advises on ways to find joy in real life. Something I've been asking every guest this summer on the pod is, what advice do you have for people who may need more joy or want to bring more joy into their life?
Ooh, I love this question, which is why I love you in Cream City Dreams. So if you were to ask me what's bringing me the most joy, like I can't wait to get out of bed in the morning to go write in my journal. And it is with a pencil and a piece of paper. And it's in a specific location in my house that's surrounded by windows where I can look outside and stare at the blades of green grass and the birds fly by and the garbage cans outside my house. And really all I'm saying is being grateful and noticing and having awe and gratitude towards the everyday things in my life that I haven't stopped and paid attention to in a long time. And haven't just been grateful for the moment and the process that I'm in, as opposed to the destination I'm trying to get to and the next thing that I want, or the accumulation or the material object or what have you. And I've noticed that in doing that behavior every day, it has a ripple effect on the choices I make throughout the day. Like I've been shopping less because I'm more grateful for what I actually already have than what I need or want. So that's just an example of me finding more joy in the everyday moments of life and checking in with it ritually. This is me, the structured behaviorist, right? And I noticed we were talking about a weekend trip I went on to Door County, and I wasn't able to, in that situation or environment, journal every day. And I noticed that I missed it. And I really loved that. So.
Yeah. Just that self-reflection that gives you the reminder that I am enough. I have enough. This is enough. Yeah. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And actually, I'll just have to say also another plug to Megan and her great work. She also is an artist, tweet for folks who don't know this. And she has cards and stationery, and they're words that I purchased from Megan's great work, her artwork, earlier in 2025. And so they sit on my desk and remind me of the simplicities of abundance and gratitude and introspection. And so I look at those on my desk while I'm journaling.
Aw, thanks. That makes me feel so happy. Thank you. So joyful. Well, there you have it. The season of joy is coming to an end, but let that not be the end of joy. I hope these short snippets from each of the conversations I've had this season inspires you to find more joy in your daily life. I feel like there were 3 real themes that came through for me as I listened or re-listened to what these guests had to say about joy. The first being, find your thing. What is your thing that brings you joy? Everybody has something different. What sparks joy for one might be off-putting to another. Who knows? But what is your thing? Find that and do more of it. Step away from the daily grind possibly find some like-minded humans to do it with, and just do it. The second thing I noticed is that a lot of people talked about finding joy through self-expression, something creative that you can put into the world. And remember, creativity doesn't have to be a painting or a song or a piece of tangible artwork. We are creative creatures just by nature. This is what we do. We problem solve. That is a creative act. So find something to create, or find a way to use your special brand of creativity. And the third theme that I felt as I listened to these was to do this outside. Get outside, go for a walk, go to the beach, look up, look around, listen to the sounds. Get yourself into nature somehow, or at least away from the desk, out of your house, and find joy by paying attention to the world around us. So there you have it. I hope these are helpful. I hope you found inspiration this week. And if any of these conversations or snippets of conversations sparked your interest, go back and listen to the episodes. They're timeless. This is a podcast about Milwaukee women. I hope that by hearing their stories of how these women are living their dreams, it inspires you to live your dream. What is it you want to do? What is it you feel called to do? What is it that brings you joy? And what is it going to take for you to make that dream a reality? And if you figure it out, I'd love to share it with the listeners here, so get in touch. As I'm wrapping up season 8, the season of joy, I'm realizing that one of the things that brings me joy is to share my gratitudes. And so I have a few people I want to thank. Actually, more than a few, because there are a couple hundred on my newsletter. And I'm so grateful to you because the newsletter folks are loyal. They are opening my newsletter at a rate that I wasn't sure was possible. Someone once told me that if 30 to 40% of the people open your newsletter, that is on fire. And every week, almost, and sometimes more than 70% of you are reading the email. So I am grateful because I do spend time on that. That is a community that I want to cultivate because I enjoy writing, and I share a little more about my reflections, about these conversations, about cool things happening in our community and ways to meet our guests in real life. So if you are not on the newsletter, I promise I don't spam. I wouldn't know how to spam if I tried. I just send these on Wednesdays when the episodes come out. So once a week you'll hear from me, but you can sign up at the website, creamcitydreams.com. I also want to thank those listeners who have clicked on the link to buy me a coffee. That keeps the lights on here at Cream City Dreams. That keeps the website running. That keeps the podcast hosting service running. Keeps my editing software running. All the things that it takes to make a podcast. And to make a podcast that has been a passion project of mine for the last 3 years. I am so grateful to the people who hop over to buymeacoffee.com/creamcitydreams and buy me a coffee. So I just would like to shout out Darlene and Meg and Marjorie and Carrie and Mary Alice and Jamila and Eric. Thank you so much for taking the time not only to leave the money, that is so much appreciated, but also to leave a message that you are listening, that you're hearing the podcast, and that you appreciate it, because that keeps me going. So I am so grateful to those folks. I also want to thank the people who have been writing in suggesting guests. I love to hear who you think should be on this show. There are so many incredible women in Milwaukee, and they all deserve a shout out. So as many as I can, I want to fit on the pod. So thanks for keeping those suggestions coming in. It's wonderful to check out new women that I haven't heard about, but who deserve the spotlight. All right, Milwaukee, this has been a joy. This summer has been a joy. This season has been so joyful. I hope you felt that emanating from these episodes, and I hope you'll join me back for the next season. More info on that to come, but until then, Milwaukee, keep on dreaming.